So in this video, we are going to build up on that definition we introduced in the previous video where we thought of the absolute value as being a magnitude or a size of a number. And we are going to now introduce this idea of the absolute value as a distance. So specifically, when we think of this definition, we are talking about the absolute value of a number being the distance from it to the origin. And we think back to our most easiest kind of understanding of positive and negative numbers when we were first learning this as being these numbers and having them positioned on a number line. Now, if we look at this example here, we're looking at the two numbers, positive 3 and negative 3. We can agree, because they have the same magnitude, we can say that positive 3 has a magnitude of 3. It's 3 units away from 0. Negative 3, similarly, is, although it has a direction associated to it, we're going to the left of 0 instead of to the right of 0, we can still say, whether it's positive 3 or negative 3, it is 3 units away from 0. So when we think about the absolute value of a number, we can think of this in terms of a distance from the origin. Now, I can do a whole bunch of examples here. If I, for example, took 5 and negative 5, I can see the same kind of thing playing out. The distance between 0 and positive 5 is 5. The distance between 0 and negative 5 is still 5. Both of these numbers, 5 and negative 5, are still 5 units from the origin. Now, we can extend this to generally say, as I've written here, the absolute value of x here, of a number, is the distance from x to the origin. So we can say, because we think of distance as always being either positive or 0, we can say that the absolute value of x is always greater than or equal to 0 for all real numbers x. And if we think back to the last video, we looked at this example of the absolute value of negative 3 being 3, or the absolute value of negative 5 being 5. We can generally say that the absolute value of x or negative x is going to give us x. So this goes for all real numbers x. And we can say, one more point just to add here, based on this, we can say that the numbers x and negative x are equally distant from the origin. That's what I basically showed in this diagram above. These are equally distant from the origin. So we can establish this relationship that the absolute value of negative x equals the absolute value of positive x. And we can say this is for all real numbers of x. Now, this doesn't just go for the distance between 0. We can also apply an absolute value to the distance between numbers. So we can say that the distance from x to a, so from some value x to some value a on the number line, is the absolute value of x minus a. And we have a particular relationship that follows, which I'll show you visually, that we can say that the difference between x and a, the absolute value of this, is equal to the absolute value of a minus x for all real numbers x and a. Now, let's just consider the distance between 5 and negative 2. So the distance between 5 and negative 2. If we consider this relationship that I've just written, we can basically show this. Now, imagine if we said the absolute value, let's take 5 to be A, and let's take -2 to be X. So two cases, if I did the absolute value of A minus X on this left-hand side, we can say that this would be 5 minus -2 and the absolute value of this. So 5 minus -2 is going to be 7, and the absolute value of 7 gives us 7. Let's say we swapped this around. So let's change the orientations from A minus X to being X minus A. If I do X minus A, we can see that -2 minus 5 is going to give us -7 here, and the absolute value of -7 gives us +7. And this is quite intuitive, because if we imagine the number line and we draw this up and we go from, we said, let's call this -2 to 5, it doesn't matter which way we look at it, whether we go the distance of this number from this number or this number from this number, whether the perspective of the distance is different, we can still say that from here to here, no matter which way we look at it, these two numbers are 7 units apart on the number line.